Hi students, welcome to yet another session of my class, Reading Fiction. We already discussed about the term fiction, prose fiction, different types of fiction like fable, short story, novel, then different types of novel, etc. Now we are going to discuss about the narrative strategies used in these writings. Narrative strategies in the sense literary techniques. We all know that some each writers used different types of literary techniques in their writings. For example, poem. You are familiar with the poetic meters, then comparisons, figure of speeches, etc. So they used such techniques to express the ideas or emotions or feelings to the readers effectively. So here in the prose writings like novels, short stories, etc., there are some other literary techniques to express their emotions, feelings, ideas to the readers effectively. And we are going to discuss here in this session, we are going to discuss some literary techniques that used in prose writings, especially in fiction. Let us discuss in detail. First, we are going to discuss about stream of consciousness, one of the literary techniques used by the modern writers. That means 20th century. In the 20th century writings, we can trace this type of literary techniques, that is stream of consciousness. And what do you mean by the stream of consciousness? Stream of consciousness refers to the literary technique of representing the continuous flow of sense perceptions, thoughts, and feelings in a human mind, often by using continuous unpunctuated sentences. So, literary stream of consciousness refers to the literary technique. That means it is one of the literary techniques used by the modern writers. Then, what is its features? Of representing the continuous flow of sense perceptions, thoughts, and feelings in a human mind. That means the expression of one's feelings, thoughts, emotions, ideas, everything, representing or expression of everything, that is one's emotions, feelings, thoughts, emotions, everything that is going on in the mind of that particular character. So, whatever he or she thinks, expression of that thinking as it is, often by using continuous unpunctuated sentences. That means without any break. That means these types of sentences may be too long. The sentences may be too long because without any punctuation marks, that's like a full stop or pause, comma, colon, semicolon, etc. That means without any break, the author tried to express those feelings, emotions, ideas, or sense perceptions as it is. That is important. Maybe the idea may be incomplete. That is the what is that character thinks about. Expression of that thinking as it is without any break. Maybe the those ideas may be incomplete, or the thinking may be in wrong grammar. But the expression is also like that, in wrong grammar, or the expression is incomplete. The stream of consciousness, it is a style or technique of writing that tries to capture the natural flow of a character's extended thought process, often by incorporating sensory impressions. Sensory impressions is, we all know that we have five senses and we perceive the things through these five senses. So everything that the character thinks or experience, expression of that experiences or impressions, then incomplete ideas, unusual syntax, rough grammar, everything, the expression of everything that the character thinks or experiences. That is the term stream of consciousness mean. And the term is sometimes used interchangeably with the interior monologue. Yes, sometimes writers used this stream of consciousness is sometimes used interchangeably, exchanged with the interior monologue. Interior monologue is also the direct expression of one's emotions, feelings, thoughts, etc. That means direct expression of characters, emotions, thoughts, feelings, etc. Then what is the difference between the stream of consciousness and interior monologue? Most of the stream of consciousness in first person narration, and there is no chronological order in the expression because our human mind or our human consciousness has no such a beginning or end. So the ideas may be expressed in not in a chronological order or not in a unified manner. But in the case of interior monologue, it is the direct expression of the character without any help of the author. That means the narration may be in third person narration. The author's expression, not authors, the character's expression, feelings, emotions in a direct method that is expressed loudly without any assistance from the part of author or the writer or without any author's commentary. That is the main difference between stream of consciousness and interior monologue. And the stream of consciousness is one type of interior monologue. But the difference is that a slight difference between stream of consciousness and interior monologue. So the term is that the stream of consciousness is sometimes used interchangeably with the interior monologue. And Molly Bloom's soliloquy in Ulysses is an example of this technique. Ulysses is one of the famous writings in the modern period. Ulysses was written by James Joyce. In that particular work, Molly Bloom, a famous character, Molly Bloom's soliloquy in Ulysses is an example of this technique. Soliloquy means that character's thinking or whatever she thinks regarding particular matter or something like that. So expression of that characters, thoughts, emotions, feelings, perceptions is an example of this stream of consciousness technique. And according to David Lodge, reading an interior monologue is, that is one of the critics named David Lodge, he defined the interior monologue or reading an interior monologue is like wearing earphones plugged into someone's brain. He defined interior monologue as comparing with or like wearing earphones plugged into someone's brain and monitoring the subject's impressions, reflections, questions, memories, and fantasies as they are triggered either by physical sensations or the association of ideas. That means the direct expression or direct expression of others, not others, characters, emotions, feelings, thoughts, etc. That is monitoring, direct expression, or the directly monitoring the subject or the writer, characters, impressions, reflections, questions, memories, etc. as they are triggered either by physical sensations or the association of ideas. That was the definition that David Lodge given to interior monologue. It is like a wearing earphones directly or plugged into someone's brain and monitoring directly the characters, impressions, reflections, questions, etc. And some critics hold that stream of consciousness refers to all representations of thought processes, and that interior monologue is a direct method of representing these. Then, stream of consciousness was a technique best suited for the fragmented modernist fiction. What is the peculiarity of the modern writings? I already told you that is this type of, that is stream of consciousness, especially the stream of consciousness is a literary technique used in the modern writings. Modern writings means modern, what is the peculiarity of the modern period? That is everything is in a state of fragmentation. There is no stability because of the impact of two world wars, that is the first and the second world wars. The total world, that is the country or especially in the European nation, that was in a disintegrated state, that is in a fragmented state because of the impact of these two great world wars. And that fragmentation we can see in the modern writings also. And stream of consciousness was a technique best suited for the fragmented modernist fiction. Yes, this particular literary technique was best suited for the fragmented modernist fiction. They felt that the traditional techniques could not meet the social pressures of the new age. These modern writers find out that they felt that the traditional techniques, like in the neoclassical age, we all know that the writers followed strict or rigid rules, etc. So they felt that the traditional techniques, that is, the traditional writers, their techniques like heroic couplet, then blank verse, etc. That is strict or rigid rules and regulations they followed. That is the traditional writers. So they felt that in the modern writings in this particular period, they felt that these traditional techniques could not meet the social pressures of the new age. I already told you this modern age they witnessed the two great world wars. As a result of the world wars, yes, the total world or the European nation was disintegrated, and this fragmentation was clearly evident in modern writings also. So these modern writers think that the traditional techniques are not capable to express the ideas clearly. They felt that the traditional techniques could not meet the social pressures of the new age. That's why they are thinking about new techniques to express those feelings, emotions, ideas, perceptions to the readers effectively. And as a result, yes, one of the modern literary techniques like stream of consciousness came into work. Virginia Woolf and James Joyce, two modern writers, they employed the technique to depict the dilapidated reality of their times. Dilapidated in the sense means ruined or in a state of ruin or disrepair, etc. That means that fragmented state. So Virginia Woolf and James Joyce employed the technique to depict the harsh realities of their times. Dorothy Richardson was a pioneer of this technique, and William James used the phrase in his The Principles of Psychology. William James used the phrase, that is stream of consciousness, in his famous work The Principles of Psychology. It was used by James Joyce in Ulysses, developed by Virginia Woolf in Mrs. Dalloway, and William Faulkner in The Sound and Fury. Yes, it was used by James Joyce in Ulysses. Ulysses is a work written by James Joyce, and this particular technique was developed by Virginia Woolf in the work Mrs. Dalloway. It is a work. And William Faulkner, another modern writer, used this literary technique in The Sound and the Fury. It is another work by William Faulkner. I think all of you understand stream of consciousness technique. Next, we are going to discuss about metafiction, another literary technique used in prose writings. Yes, how can we define this term metafiction? Metafiction can be simply defined as fiction about fiction. Yes, it can be defined as fiction about fiction or fiction commenting on its own fictionality. That means it is a form of fiction that emphasizes or that focuses its own constructedness. What is that constructedness? That continually reminds the reader to be aware that is, it continually aware the readers to be aware that we are reading or viewing a fictional work. That means emphasis on its own fictionality. They openly comment on their own fictional status. They are works. This metafiction is a form of fiction. They are works that involve a significant degree of that self-consciousness. What is that self-consciousness about themselves as fiction? Yes, they are focusing or emphasizing that it is a fiction, or they are fictions in ways that go beyond occasional apologetic addresses to the reader. Apologetic addresses to the reader means formal address to the reader. So it focuses on its own fictional status, and they are works that involve a significant degree of self-consciousness about themselves as fictions and that go beyond that occasional casual apologetic address, that is the normal or the formal address to the reader. Then metafiction is the self-conscious novel. It is otherwise called a self-conscious novel because it is a form of fiction. It is defined as fiction about fiction. So we can term it as a self-conscious novel. And the avant-gardist Ronald Sepnik in The Death of the Novel, his work named The Death of the Novel, asks the reader to join in the author's fun, commenting that what we need is not great works but playful ones. A story is a game someone has played, so you can play it too. Yes, one of the avant-gardists, Ronald Sepnik, in The Death of the Novel, his famous work, The Death of the Novel, asks the reader to join along with the author's fun, commenting on the readers to join along with the author's fun, and he emphasizing or commenting that what we need is not great works that play that, but playful ones. A story is a game someone has played, so you can play it too. That is his comment. Then another example, John Barth's short story collection Lost in the Funhouse contains some classic examples of metafiction. Then Daniel Stern's Twice Told Tales is another example. Another notable modern example is John Fowles' The French Lieutenant's Woman, in which Fowles interrupts the narrative to explain his procedures and offers the reader alternative endings. Yes, it allows the reader to interpret. Another, that is the peculiarity of that work, in which Fowles, that writer, interrupts the narrative to explain his procedures and offers the reader, allows the reader to give alternative endings to that particular work. Then novels that deal with the author's struggles to finish his or her works can also be considered metafiction. That is, novels that deal with author struggles to finish his or her writings or her works can also be termed as metafiction. The finest of modern metafictions is Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, which begins like this. That particular novel is beginning like this. You are about to begin reading Italo Calvino's new novel, If on a Winter's Night a Traveler. That is, here in these examples, we can trace that as author offers the reader to give interpretations or to play or read along with the author's writings. Earlier writers from Miguel de Cervantes and Lawrence turned to Samuel Beckett and Borges were substantial influences on this particular genre. And writings becomes a tedious in war-torn countries amidst torture. Another examples are Orphan Pamuk's Snow is a famous example. Then Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children makes constant references to the process of writing and calls the creative processes a signification of history. Certification means it epitomizes his use of language in the novels. So Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children makes constant references to the process of writing and calls the creative process a certification of history. Certification means his use of language in the novels with a special reference to Midnight Children. Actually, it is a linguistic experiment in the sense means a blending of different languages like Hindi, Urdu, etc. So, I think all of you understand metafiction. It is defined as fiction about fiction. It's self-conscious novel. Then it is a form of fiction that emphasizes the reader's attention to the constructedness of its fictionality. All of you understand metafiction. I think all of you understand metafiction. Yes, we completed first module with the this is the last class of first module, narrative strategies. I think all of you understand this first module. That is, we discussed about the term fiction, prose fiction, then different types of fiction like fable, short story, novel, etc. Then different types of novel. We discussed about so many types of novel. At last, we discussed about the narrative strategies used in these prose writings or fiction. I think all of you understand the first module. And there is a homework for you. Write a note on narrative strategies of fiction. All of you watch all the classes and write your homework properly. Then send back to me. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you again.